welcome back to the ACSC Podcast. You've probably seen already now because he's on the screen, but Mr. Tom Jones is back for his third appearance for the season already. He loves getting involved with us over here and we love him on the show. So if you haven't seen last week's episode, go check it out. I apologise in advance, it's a long one. I think it's probably the longest episode, nearly 2 hours. It went on for a while, but it's a very good listen. A lot of topics covered, and you've probably seen that two of us are wearing England shirts and you can work out what's coming up. But we've done a little talk about Euros there, and we're following it on today with our 23-man squad of who actually gets on the plane to bring the Euros to England for the first time. I can't say it's coming home because we've never won the Euros before, but it's coming home this summer. And I don't know if you've seen that Boris has actually announced he plans to host the whole thing now in England. So it could be a good one. But I'll let the co-host do his little intro, and Mr. John Jones can introduce himself again for the third time.
Evening, guys. How are we?
Hi, guys. I'm back again. They can't get any other guests, so they've got to get me. Third time lucky.
You might hit a record of 5 or 6 appearances this season. It'd be good.
Yeah, it's like I'm like that kid outside the training ground when their favourite player comes out.
He just keeps...
But they just drive past every time, and I'm there with my shirt. Sign it, and then he just drives past.
But yeah, so England 23-man squad for the Euros. We'll kick it off. So the way we'll do it as an order is we're going to go through the keepers first. We'll sort of deliberate a bit, see why we picked two, and no doubt there's going to be some questionable picks, so we can sort of debate them. And then at the end, we'll sort of decide a starting 11 between us. So keepers, and Tom, I'll let you kick it off.
Right, so I've gone with my 3 keepers. First choice keeper for me, Nick Pope. Second, Dean Henderson. And third, Jordan Pickford.
What's that?
Nick Pope, then Jordan Pickford, and then Dean Henderson.
And my order is the same as Tom. Nick Pope, Dean Henderson, and Jordan Pickford. So any reasons why, I'll start it off. I think the one that a lot of people say is obviously Pickford was the starting keeper at the World Cup, obviously, and I think everyone slates his form, but I think in the World Cup he was one of our standout players, especially as a leader, sort of the squad, and obviously the noble penalty shootout, etc. So is there a reason why we've all sort of put him either as second or third choice keeper?
For what I've seen of him, he has got a mistake in him, which I think is something quite agreeable. There's been times where he's looked a bit shaky, not as confident as he did at the World Cup. And for me, that's why he's sort of been knocked down the pecking order. I don't know if Warren feels the same.
Well, you should know by now my thoughts on this bloke from this. My thoughts with this one was he is a good goalkeeper. You look at some of his acrobats he does for his saves, but is he a liability for some of the challenges he puts in are horrendous, and that's the last thing we need of a goalkeeper getting sent off during a game.
Yeah, I think it's hard to say. I think if you sort of look back on the years where we have had, I think we are quite lucky with the depth in keepers we actually have at the moment. Because I think if you go back a few years, obviously Joe Hart was a standout keeper for a while, but no one could really challenge his berth for a long time. Sort of coming through, and obviously Pickford could have only had one tournament as number one. I think Hart must have had 3 or 4 tournaments as number one. And I think obviously we all put Nick Pope as a standout keeper for number one. What do you think he's done to sort of earn that?
Burnley have spent little to nothing on their team. They've got a solid defensive record. And I think he sort of plays a similar role to the defence like Emi Martinez does for Aston Villa.
Yeah.
He's reliable. He's really tall, makes himself big. And he's had some really blinding games this season. And I think he's just sort of worked his way to the top. He's been in and around the England team, and I think he's got a cap or two, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah.
But for me, he's been standout by far this season, especially in an England shirt.
And I think, interestingly, we've all put Dean Henderson in there. I think a lot of that and credit is down to his role last year at Sheffield United, where I think he was arguably probably one of the top keepers, if not the top keeper last season, in my opinion, for some of his games. But obviously, being back at United this season, not really started a lot of games. I know he's starting to get a bit more of a role at the moment with De Gea still making a lot of errors. But is it hard to put a keeper in there who's not starting every game for his club?
I don't think you can. Not with that. Because end of the day, you need, as you have your training, but then you have your game, like your game fitness as such, as they call it.
Yeah.
If he's only like playing 1 in 6 or even maybe more than that, it could be Champions League. Well, not Champions League anymore. But you can't keep going. You have to keep being number one straight away to, I think, even getting into the England side.
No, I agree. It's a valid point. I think the reason that he's not starting in the minute is because, United have obviously made it very clear that they wanted to stay. I just feel that this is sort of their transitional period where I think we'll start to see maybe next season the role of Henderson and De Gea switch.
Yeah.
Where we see De Gea maybe starts like sort of the cup games and Henderson becoming the number one. I think it's just that transitional period. But yeah, no, it's a valid point. Game fitness, as you mentioned, Warren, training is a lot different to a game, especially, in a tournament like that with a lot of pressure on you. So it is a controversial one. But on the other hand, at the minute, other than those three, there's not really a keeper that comes to mind that really could be challenging for any of those three spots for me. So that's why I think he gets the nod.
I was trying to think of others. Obviously, is it Tom Heaton? I don't know.
That's number 2.
Obviously, yeah, he's number 2 at Burnley. For a while, obviously, he stepped up when Pope was injured. He's the only other one I can really think of mentioning that's worthwhile. What was that? Is he injured?
No, he's at Villa, isn't he? He's under Martinez.
Oh, he might. Okay. I thought he was at Burnley, but maybe going to wrong. But that's really the only guy I think is sort of wondering. There's none other that I could think of off the top of my head. So I think obviously it was a pretty given. I was certain that we've all had the same as those keepers, but I think the defence is where we're going to start to see some different opinions. So Wazza, your defenders.
So we'll go for centre back. So I've gone for John Stones, Harry Maguire, and I don't think anyone else will have it. Michael Keane.
Okay.
And then for the left and right backs, we've gone for Trent, Kyle Walker, Ben Chilwell, and Luke Shaw.
Okay. Tom?
So I'll start with the centre backs as well. I too went for Michael Keane, John Stones, Tyrone Mings. Right backs I went for Trent Alexander-Arnold and Kyle Walker, and left backs I went for Ben Chilwell and Luke Shaw.
Okay, so the centre backs I've gone with Harry Maguire, Slabhead, got to be in there. John Stones. It's a toss-up. I don't know if Joe Gomez is going to be back fitness. If he's back into fitness, he would make it. But if not, it'll be Michael Keane. Then the full-backs are Trent Alexander-Arnold, Reece James, Luke Shaw, and Ben Chilwell.
There.
Huh?
We're near enough there. They're the same.
Similar. I think obviously one that's going to get mentioned a lot, and I think Tom probably says it is Harry Maguire.
Oh God, don't get me started. I just think that for Warren, how much did the Van Dijk cost Liverpool?
75.
75.
Yeah.
Right. At the minute, let's be honest, Van Dijk is one of the best centre-backs in world football. How many guys, 80 million, single-handedly paid for the Leicester training ground, and he's average at best.
I think quicker at him.
Exactly. I mean, he is literally, don't get me wrong, Sunday League, he'd be amazing. But he takes so long on the ball. Don't get me wrong, he's technically gifted, but for me, he's very slow and he just takes so long on the ball. There was a game, I think, at Wembley where he had the ball for 15 seconds before he passed it back to the keeper. And he just for me, he's one of those players. He sort of falls on the bracket with Dyer for me. He's just so frustrating to watch.
I agree in that certain sense, but I think for me in an England shirt, I don't think he's had too many bad games in an England shirt. Put him in that, for some things. I think there's certain players that when they're playing for their country are phenomenal. I think at first name to is Gini Wijnaldum. Before he scores countless goals when he's playing for Holland. And I think at the back line, obviously, he had a standout role in the World Cup then. But I think he's got to be in there for experience anyway. But I think also for that corners, we were so deadly at set pieces at the World Cup. If we're sort of going along them similar lines, he does score a fair few goals from that situation. So that's my main reason putting him
in. One of those. I completely agree with Tom. He is slow as anything, but you look what he did of the last tournament. Kind of got our hopes up with it, but then if you said obviously he's had quite a few good games for England, but then who have we really played?
I think in the Nations League he was very well, and obviously the Nations League was at a higher standard. But he played the likes of Holland, Croatia, Spain. He's played in all those games. Obviously, he's had. I don't say I'm not saying I'm a fan of Harry Maguire here. I think he's the same opinion as you guys. He's not the most technical player. He's not a quick ball playing centre back. You say he's an old traditional centre back. He's there and he's going to tackle you. And I think in some sense we sort of need that to sort of balance alongside who I think will be a starter person is John Stones. And I think if you asked me this time last year would John Stones been anywhere near this squad, I would have said no.
Yeah, great.
This season, he's an absolute shoe-in to start at the back line. I think we talked about it a little bit last week. Is his rise to sort of stardom this season has been phenomenal.
Do you think it's one of those things you look at when Van Dijk first come into Liverpool, Gomez the up and coming at that time, and obviously they had that massive run of doing absolutely brilliantly. Is it the same with Stones being maybe of like Laporte, or that has just brought him out, even though obviously Laporte's been injured or that? Has it just kind of made him a better defender by listening to other centre backs?
Potentially. I mean, as I say, he's played with Laporte and now he's building a very strong partnership with Diaz. But I think it does. It doesn't go missing that if you play with better players, you yourself will improve. For example, if you put him in the 23s for the season, but he played every game and had a good game, would he be as good as he would be now in the first team with the run of games he's had? Probably not. But I think you do make a good point about experience, but I just feel like at the confidence that John Stones is currently at in the competitions that he'll be playing in, I just feel like he'll be able to withhold the pressure.
And I think it's also down to, the coaching as well. Obviously, he's now been under, how long has he been at City? 4, 5 years?
Yes, it's got to be.
Obviously, he's been under Guardiola all this time. It's probably taken him a while to sort of get used to the way Guardiola plays at such a high intensity, but I don't think there's a better world coach for him than getting that ball playing centre back ability out of him. And I think obviously you saw it a few years ago. He was so, fixated on playing this ball playing centre back that I've got to be so good on the ball. He made a lot of mistakes and second guessed himself. Now he's sort of got that confidence flowing. He does look like a really top class centre back coming through. But we'll move on to the fullbacks as well. And I think we all have pretty similar. Obviously, Trent, I want to say he's a starting definite shoe-in, but on form this season, it's hard to sort of say he's a definite starter because I think before we started, me and Tom was talking about, I think James Justin as well. There's been a lot of competition at that right-back role to sort of say he's a guaranteed starter.
Definitely. I mean, it's really hard. As I say, I put Trent and Kyle Walker. I could put 3 sets of 2 in there that I think would be able to do a job. In terms of getting forward and offering more forward, I would start Trent personally.
Yeah.
Although Kyle Walker isn't the best defensive player, because he's so quick, his recovery is immense. So even if he does miss that tackle, he's got the pace and the power to sort of make up for it. Whereas I think if we, a lot of the time when if Liverpool, sort of done on the counter attack, it's because Trent and Robertson, for example, are so high up the pitch. So if you're looking for a sort of a dynamic sort of option, Trent starts for me. But if you wanted just like a sort of standalone solid back four, then it would probably be Kyle Walker. But there's shouts coming in from Wan-Bissaka, Reece James. Wan-Bissaka for me is probably one of the best right backs in football in terms of 1v1 situations.
Yeah, obviously I was going to put him in mine, but obviously I asked you earlier, but I don't know what his nationality is going to be at that time, if he's going to be English or if he's Ivory Coast, is that, I think?
It'll be Congo. So I think what you're saying there is, I think with Wan-Bissaka, it's an interesting one because he's sort of been very vocal this week. I've seen definitely in the media that if he doesn't get picked in it, is it something that Southgate's sort of got a few games where he's going to trial a few players out, that if he doesn't get picked then he's going to switch his alliance to Congo. And I think it's just an unfortunate time for Wan-Bissaka that he's sort of come through and making his name with so many other. I think like even Lamperty's a player we haven't mentioned as a player coming up. We've got so many sort of fullbacks coming through at this one time. And I don't think Wan-Bissaka isn't the youngest either out of them anymore. So, yeah, it's a hard one there. And then I think the left backs, obviously, I think Luke Shaw is another one that I think was sort of about Stones, is that if you asked me a few years ago, would I put him in there? It would have been a no.
Absolutely not, yeah.
But he's had one of them players again. He's sort of reinvented himself. And he's now shining as that left back for United that everyone sort of knew this player could have been years ago.
Do you reckon he's lost weight? He's still quite built, doesn't he, as such?
And I think it's more like saying he's reinvented himself. I think he obviously knew, obviously from discussions with the likes of when he was under Mourinho, he didn't get a shoe in there. Solskjaer's obviously, I won't say it's all down to Solskjaer, but I think a player sort of comes to that point, it's that crossroads, is he either knows he's going to go somewhere or he's going to end up a bit like, I think, is it like Danny Rose? I don't know if you've seen the top documentary where you had this whole bust up Mourinho in the manager's room. He was at that crossroads where he either decides to sort of make a go for it and actually become the player that everyone knew he could be, or he's just going to drop off into a mid-table side in the Premier League.
Yeah, it's more of a. It seems to be like more of a sink or swim sort of moment. But he's been immense. To be fair, there's a lot of United fans that give him a lot of stick when he plays, but he's clearly sort of channeled that into to a positive use to sort of improve himself as a player. But we're quite. Centre backs. It's quite. I mean, in terms of centre backs, it's quite hard to go from an era with Rio and John Terry, for the likes of them, to go to what we have now, because it's completely polar opposites. But we've always been quite gifted in the sort of full-back areas, and we're lucky to have lots of right backs and two left backs that have sort of burst onto the scene. The only thing that goes against them is that they don't have international tournament experience. But again, I think with the caliber of games they're playing, they're more than easy enough going to sort of deal with it.
There's someone we missed. I don't know if Charlie just said Kieran Trippier, top of the league with Atletico.
Didn't even think of him. Jesus.
Obviously, he had a big standout role in the World Cup as well. But I don't know if there's a thing is that I think, especially for English players, it's becoming a more common thing with Sancho, but not a lot of players playing in the foreign leagues get picked. It's just one of them sort of stigmas I don't know. But I think as well with Trippier, he hasn't got age on his side. And the players sort of in the squad that's evolved, I think you also sort of have to look towards the youth, because you need to get these players tournament experience. The likes of exchange, if he goes now, I think it's a situation with the Walcott. You take him at a younger age, even if he gets one or two games, he knows what that atmosphere is like in the tournament for the World Cup next, then the Euros after that.
The thing is, Walcott didn't even get a game.
No.
You've got, if you're going to take him, you mean to play him.
Agreed. Yeah. I mean, it's quite sad to see that, you've got at the end of the day, you've got to fill up a 23-man squad. But, like most squads that you sort of like, that a manager puts out, you sort of know who's going to play and who isn't. For example, like the third choice keeper, he's obviously not going to play. The second choice keeper is not even guaranteed to play, but it must be quite, like Warren said, Walcott went on the plane and all he did was train. Like, I imagine that must be quite disheartening as a player to have that achievement of being picked for your country, but then not to represent them on the world's biggest stage.
I can imagine that, but also, like, to me, I still think it is a good thing for some of these young players to see that sort of atmosphere, and I think it can do no harm in certain cases. I think the Walcott whole thing as well was a bit, the media got involved as well a lot. The media hyped him up as his 16-year-old going to the World Cup, he's going to be a superstar. And it can also turn that way, but I don't think any of the picks like Reece James, I don't think he's not good enough to start. If he starts, he can do a hell of a good job for England. So it's not like we're just taking him for that sake.
Yeah. Agreed.
I think the only other player I think would be interesting to talk about defence is, I think we've all sort of put Michael Keane as an option. It's sort of interesting to see why.
For me, he's been quite an important player for Everton. He's been up and down with his career, but I think he's inconsistent in terms of long periods of time. There's been times where I really don't rate him at all, but at the minute, I think this season he's been quite an important part of that Everton defence. I'm not sure what their defensive record is, but I know sort of recently they've been keeping, like, they kept a clean sheet last night against Southampton. Did really well.
Clean sheet against Liverpool as well, so that's 2.
Yes, 2 then. Yeah, done.
I think it's one of them. I think he's sort of shown he's a steady player. He's got that sort of, like you said, that know-how, and he's got that sort of experience there. And I think he'll do a solid sort of job. I don't see him starting, but he's a good sort of backup option if it does come to, say, an injury in the likes of Stone or Maguire.
Well, who would your starting centre backs be then, boys?
Mine would be John Stones and Harry Maguire.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I put Stones and Mings personally.
Tyrone Mings is an interesting one because I don't really rate him.
Why don't you rate him? I'm not arguing. I'm just asking, why don't you rate him?
It's one of them. He moved to, was it Villa for about, 30 odd minutes? It was an expensive transfer at the time.
From Bournemouth, I think it was.
Obviously, he's sort of got, I can't remember, where did he move from Bournemouth?
He was at Ipswich, I know that.
And obviously, he's sort of had this sort of rise where it's not a small amount of money that Villa have paid for him. And for a centre-back, he's just not one of them that I see stand out in that. Obviously, he's a tall player, etc. But I don't really see him standing out and Villa being an immense team at the back, etc. But if you I think it's a similar situation to the Nathan Ake sort of going to City. Would you see him, if he went to a club like Chelsea, etc., starting and being a star sort of centre-back?
No.
Probably not.
And this is, I think for like the likes of in the squad, obviously Michael Keane's at Everton, they're pushing for the top 4 this season. They're doing very well. John Stones is obviously City have won the league. There's a given. He's been a key man in that side. Harry Maguire obviously is United captain, so he's got that there. For me, I don't see what Mings brings to the squad.
Go on, Warren, you can have your case.
I just think he's clumsy quite a lot of the time.
Yeah, it's a hard one. But as I said before, it's hard going from an era from your Ferdinands and your Terrys to what we've got now. Because if we're being honest, I mean, at the minute, the best centre-back, in my opinion, is John Stones.
Yeah.
But we've also seen that Gareth Southgate loves a 5 at the back, which I can't stand. And we've also seen Kyle Walker move into that position as well, which seemed to work at the last tournament we were in. So it's an interesting one, but it's hard. It's picking the best of the worst in terms of quality at the minute, I think.
defence is our sort of weakest area because obviously we'll now move into the midfield and the forwards. So obviously I'll read my mids out first. So I haven't gone first. So I've gone with James Maddison, Jack Grealish, Phil Foden, Jordan Henderson, Mason Mount, Declan Rice, and James Ward-Prowse as my middle centre mids.
I've gone for I think the exact same as Charlie. So my sort of 6s and 8s, Jordan Henderson, Declan Rice, James Ward-Prowse, and then my attacking midfielders, Phil Foden, Jack Grealish, James Maddison, and Mason Mount.
I think it is pretty much the same, yeah.
Yeah.
Mine's different then.
Ah.
Only by one. So holding midfields, Hendo, Calvin Phillips, and Declan Rice. For attacking, Maddison, Phil Foden, and Mount, and Jack Grealish. Sorry.
Okay. I'll start it off with Phillips. I think last week I was very open to saying I don't really see how he fits in an England side. I've not seen too much of him at Leeds this season either. So interesting to see why you put him in your squad, was that?
Just think he's decent.
I don't know.
Got that Joe Hart and Adam Johnson interview. Tell him, ads, it was decent.
It's one of, he's done all right, I think, for Leeds this season. Obviously, we always know defensive midfielders never get any praise. It's what's actually done on that pitch. I think it'd be good for when he last played for England, I thought he was pretty good as well. He's young still, so I think it's just one of those things you just got to take a gamble on and see if it does work out. But the likelihood of that, he ain't going to be starting, so it don't really matter, does it? Much.
No, it's just interesting because obviously I think you're the only one who added him in there. I think me and Tom obviously gone pretty much the exact. Well, we have gone the same.
Yeah.
I think for me, the one that was an interesting, I think a lot of people, if they've seen me previous over the last 2 seasons, why I've gone with Declan Rice in there, because I've been very negative against him. But I think the last few games, especially, even for West Ham, he's sort of been that rock in there with Thomas Souček as them sort of middlemen. And if you're going to go with that sort of, I see the way England, if you're going to play it, in my opinion, will be that sort of 4-3-3 holding that's in Liverpool. If you put either him or Henderson in there, I think they both can do a very good job at sort of shoring that back line up, but also sort of providing them passes forward.
He's just, he's a player that doesn't score many goals and he doesn't get many assists, but what he does give you is 90 minutes of just, he's like a bulldog. He just runs and runs and runs. He breaks up the play. He stops attacks. He's really, he's very, very tactically minded. So, him and Henderson are the same player. So it'd be good to see them in a 2 as well as maybe even, depending on how he wants to play it, we may only see one of them at a time. But I think, as I say, James Ward-Prowse is sort of in the same category as Calvin Phillips. Don't think he's going to play at all.
No.
But if not, it will only be a little. But yeah, no, to see them in what I would like to see is a more attacking formation. So I would only like to see one of them with two, so we can. We at the minute in this era of English football, we are spoilt for attacking talent at the minute. So yeah, but we're lucky to have that, 2 bulldogs there just willing to work for the team and win the ball back.
I'm glad you mentioned that there, because I think the last time we saw England, especially was when we lost to, I want to say it was, who's Souček from? He's
Czech Republic.
Yeah.
And this is a game where, like you said, we're spoiled with attacking, yet we went in that game with 2 holding midfielders. I think it on that day was Hendo and Calvin Phillips. And the amount of times the ball just got caught up in the middle because we had no ability to go from defence to attack because you had too many defensive-minded players on the pitch. Nothing against them, but to me, the way I see it is you need one of them in there, and then that sort of frees up the room for the 2 more attacking options, which I think we've all gone with easy. I think the only shoe in there for me this season is Jack Grealish. And I don't know if you guys saw his performance in his England shirt for his cap. He was unreal. He just looked so comfortable and composed for his first cap for England. But then I think it'll be interesting to see who would you put next to him.
It's got to be Phil Foden.
Yeah, same here.
For me,
I think it's got to be out of Maddison, or it's got to be Grealish. Grealish, sorry.
it's hard because I think it also depends. We've sort of left out of young gathered a lot of players we know that's definitely not going to make it with injuries. I know Maddison is injured at the moment, and I don't sort of know how long he's out for. But sort of an honourable mention, I think, for me, would have made it instead of Ward-Prowse, would have been Harvey Barnes. Obviously, got injured at the weekend against Arsenal. I think he's done a knee. I think he's sort of fractured some of his knee, which obviously sad to see. But he's been stepping up his game a lot as well. I think going forward, like you said, we are so spoilt for attacking sort of central midfielders as well as the forwards. But I think Phil Foden this year has come out of, I'd say, David Silva's shadow and has allowed him to sort of become that key man for City.
He's a joke. He's literally a joke. Like his feet are phenomenal. Getting out of tight spaces. The guy's tiny, you know, and you know if you're there's a lot, you know, not like sort of opening up to another topic, but you know. There was a tweet the other day saying, would Phil Foden start in a non-league team if he was at a non-league team? And most people said no, because he's not too small, doesn't win headers. Do you know what I mean? But, you know, he sort of shows you his talent with his feet. And I think, you know, depending on what formation he goes with, I'm just really, and I've said this before, I really hope he doesn't play a back five, because it literally just, I think, ruins the rest of the attacking forward. But to see, you know, him and Grealish in the same team,
it's that prospect. I think them two. I think, like you said with Foden, I think for me this season, the game against Liverpool, where he just bullied your back line. Like, this is a kid who hasn't really started much until this season, and he just looks so comfortable in that City shirt this year.
Have you seen our back two? A dodgy keeper. But yes.
What, the dodgy keeper that's probably the best keeper in the world, yeah?
He was obviously something wrong with him that day. I don't know why, but...
I don't know, it's hard. But I think the only other one I think people might question for us is Mason Mount making it in there.
He's Frank Lampard's son, isn't
he? I like him. I do think he will be a bit more... I think he hasn't really had a sort of kicked on from last year. He had a sort of breakout season last year, and he's not really done as much. Questionable, but that's the only one I can sort of bring up as the top is maybe why he's in there.
I'm going to disagree with you. I think he's actually... sorry about that.
That's all right, no worries.
He's actually... I think he's received a lot of stick from the media, teammates, you know, and I think with Tuchel coming in, there was a lot of controversy around will he actually play. But I feel like since, you know, it's only been recent, but since Tuchel's actually came in, I feel like he's been really good. You know, does he warrant a start? Probably not. But I think he's, you know, because you got to think, Lampard had him on loan at Derby, brought him back to Chelsea, threw him into a Chelsea side with an experienced midfield, and everyone was saying, oh, look at this kid, he's amazing. Dipped in form, everyone was saying, oh, he's only playing because he's Lampard's little project sort of thing. And I think, if I'm not wrong, in Tuchel's first game, he didn't play, or he didn't start.
But a lot of players too, I think it's when a new manager always comes in, they want to make changes instantly.
Yeah, but, you know, I think he warrants a place, but I don't think he warrants to start. That's my opinion on him.
He will be adding numbers, that's all it is, I think. But then he's probably when you'd say players that you didn't want come in, he's probably the best out of the bunch out of all of them.
Definitely. So we'll move on to the forwards. I think this is probably, I'll say for me, the hardest, because I think there's going to be some big names here that don't make it. And I think I'm probably going to piss off quite a lot of United fans. But so, Tom, I'll let you kick it off.
Right. So I've gone for... right. Start off, go with Raheem Sterling.
Yeah.
Jaden Sancho.
Yeah.
Bukayo Saka. Harry Kane. Dominic Calvert-Lewin. And Marcus Rashford.
I've got the exact same.
Again.
Yeah.
Love that.
I might change out.
Okay.
Oh.
Been thinking about him all day, to be honest. It's between Calvert-Lewin and Bamford I'm going to take out and put this old boy in. So at the moment, we've currently got Sterling, Sancho and Rashford.
Yeah.
And Rashford can play up front if needed. So that Bamford and Calvert-Lewin, who I'd take out for Hudson old boy.
Oh, okay.
Hudson-Odoi.
Yeah, Hudson old boy.
Instead of Saka.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Oh,
See you
yeah.
later.
We're gone.
I reckon Calvert-Lewin's got a bit more patience, so I'm going to take out Bamford and put Hudson-Odoi in.
Okay. Reason why?
I just think he's like now. I think we might see it in a few more games out of him. But even like last season when he was starting getting into the team, I think it was it might have been Champions League or it might have been Europa. I saw he was just absolutely dominating that game with even his vision of how he's doing, going straight at the defence and not kind of like, as you said, fannying about keep turning. He was actually just going for it.
Tom, I'll let you go first. You want anything? No.
No, I'm not salty at all. But out of interest, it doesn't help. I'm an Arsenal fan, so I'm going to be biased. Charlie's an Arsenal fan, so he's going to be biased. Warren, why do you think Callum Hudson-Odoi gets the nod over Bukayo Saka, especially after his season? Out of interest, I'm just intrigued.
What I've seen of Saka, haven't seen too much about him, but I think everyone, like especially you two, I need to speak to other Arsenal fans that they're hyping him up so much, but I just haven't seen much of him to say I can put that full 100%. Yeah, he's decent or that.
It's a hard one because he's one of them. If you support a team and you see someone come through your academy that goes into the first team, you automatically, I think, hype them up even more.
Yeah.
So, for example, maybe controversial, Curtis Jones, decent player.
I was about to say.
Yeah, decent player, but he's not. He's not there yet.
Depending on, I would say, they need to really kind of find out what position they want to play him in.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, yeah, fair enough.
For him, especially, I think he's done well for the last couple of games, but it's one of those things of in and out of the team as such. If we haven't got any injuries, obviously he ain't going to touch it. But what I've seen of him, quite a bit of really good energy, likes getting forward. But when you look at him, you'd probably think he's more of a defensive kind of type. But it's like anything, like you said, if you're a supporter, you're always going to big them up than what they actually are.
I think it's a hard one because I think, like you said there, that is. But I think with Saka, where you're saying Jones is here, honestly, I think Saka's here now. This year, if you look at the games, obviously, I watch Arsenal. Well, I'm going to watch him. But if you look at the games where he's not been involved, we are half the side going forward. We have barely any threat. When he's in that side, he is a game changer for us this season. I think last season, if you was to ask me if he'd be in the England squad, I would have said no.
Strapper, you could be a game changer for them as well.
But you look at it like in the game midweek in the Benfica game, he got the 2 assists for Aubameyang. That first assist on the half turn, the way he did, I think he's a special player. That, don't get me wrong, I think he's not the finished product. I wouldn't start him in the England side. He wouldn't be in there above the likes of Sancho, etc. But I definitely think off the bench, late in the game when they sort of tired legs, I think he's got the ability to change something and make something happen.
Can he play either wing? I was going to say, otherwise, like, the only other reason I would have said is because Sterling obviously got better legs than what I'd say Sancho has. So Hudson on the right instead of the left.
Yeah.
He plays everywhere, to be honest, isn't he?
And I think it's like sort of what you're saying about Jones. I think last season Saka was going through that where we was trying to work out where the hell to play him.
He got in the England squad as a left back.
We played him as a left back. There was talk, obviously, him becoming the new left back for England. This is what he played there for us. We've now moved him forward into the left wing, right wing, like he does, and that is his better position.
Is that because they played him left back because he's quick, like a double Traore?
No, we had no freaking left backs. It was while
we didn't, did we? Because we had Benjua was injured. Everyone was injured, weren't they?
Yeah, but even for Arsenal as well, the only reason because Tierney was out injured for pretty much the whole of his sort of first season. So he had to make do and play in there.
James Milner, left back. He just obviously he's going to be exactly the same as Saka. Obviously not for pace wise, but they just keep going.
Yeah, and I think like you're saying about Hudson-Odoi, I think Saka's a very similar player. I'm not denying it. I do like Hudson-Odoi. I think the biggest problem for me is I think what we were sort of saying about the keeper, that they have to be starting games. Hudson-Odoi is not really starting for Chelsea. Obviously, when he come off the bench, I think it was a half time the other day, and he got pulled off after 20 minutes. It's them sort of things that, to me, I think for Hudson-Odoi to get in the English squad, he needs to leave Chelsea. He needs to go to a club. Obviously, I think Bayern Munich have always been interested for the last 2 years. He needs to go and sort of reinvent himself into a player where he's going to get starts. And I think the Bundesliga is the ideal place for him because you look at the amount of youngsters and English youngsters that's gone up there and are thriving.
I think it'd probably be better for him to probably go to someone like Dortmund than I would Bayern.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. He's not getting in over Gnabry and Sane.
No.
But then I think we'll sort of move it on to some of the other forwards. I think Jaden Sancho is an interesting one. If you asked this question at the start of the season, he was poor the start of this year. 2021's come round and he is absolutely flying back to the usual.
No, I'm just thinking, and I personally rate him, but do you think some people only rate him because he's in a good foreign team and he's English? Do you think that? Because look, let's be honest. I can comfortably say since he's been at Dortmund, I've watched 3 full games of when he's played.
Yeah,
he comes from London. One big part of England. He played for a Manchester team. All the city lot loved him, and United tried to buy him. So he's obviously got the hype from quite large parts of England, and he's obviously. I think he broke a record the other day as well.
He's the youngest player ever in Bundesliga history to get 50 assists.
Is that English player or youngest player?
Youngest.
Ever. Speaks for itself. But then then the question is, you've got one of the young best strikers in the world to sort of feed all the time, but he does it well. And I don't think he's been bad for England, but I don't think he's been amazing for England as of yet. And I think we're just, he needs more games in an international environment for us to really see what he's about.
It's obviously the Bundesliga to the Premier League is completely different style-wise. Could that be one of the problems?
I think it is. I think the prime example is Timo Werner this year. Obviously, arguably was one of the best forwards in the world, bagging goals in fun for the Bundesliga. Has come to the Premier League and it's not quite worked out. But I personally really like. I think I've been very vocal, and I think obviously Adil, when he's back, is very vocal as well. We ranked him as youngsters probably one of the top 3 best in the world. I think he'll be up there with trying to win the Ballon d'Or in the future. There's something about that kid. I'm a big fan of the Bundesliga. I like watching it. When he's on top form, arguably, I think people like you said, Tom, obviously will say is the start of the season, he was so out of touch. I think he lost all his confidence. I don't know what happened. I don't know if it, obviously he had a bit of media stick and everything. Obviously with the COVID stuff, he was involved with that. I don't know if that come into it as well. But since 2021's come round, he's found his swagger again and he's back to his best. And I think in an English shirt, like I said, we haven't seen his best performances yet. Agreed. But I would start him. Personally, I think on the ball, what you said about legs, him and Sterling are probably our most technical players.
That's that. Yeah, I mean, that's what I was going to ask. Who would your front three be? And they're my two wingers.
It's hard to sort of, I say it's hard not to get Rashford in there, but
Rashford's inconsistent.
And
massively.
And I think Sterling is one of them that he sort of dropped off a little bit, but he's found his form again in time for the Euros.
It's hard to be a star in that City team and sort of, he's involved in almost all the goals, but he may not always get the assist or something. But, if you watch the game technically like I attempt to try to do, he'll make a run to make space for someone to do. He makes a lot of unselfish runs, and there was a lot of analysis around him at the World Cup that he sort of played in that second striker role. Yeah. And his role was literally just to pull defenders apart to free Keane up. So I think I think technically he's way more advanced than any of the other wingers as of yet. He's had a lot of experience. And I think he can cause a real problem down that side with whoever starts at left back, to be honest.
I think Sterling is the best English player we have. I'd put him above Kane. In the last few years, if you look, obviously, I think the record knows. Obviously, how many did he went like 4 years where he scored 2 or 3 goals for England. And if you look at his form the last 2-3 years, he's been untouchable. He's found that, I'd say, that sort of next gear that everyone knew he could.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if we sort of link it into Rashford, I think Rashford's in that transitional phase now where he's starting to work out what his best game is. And that's what you said about analysis. I think Cavani is a very good option for him to learn off. He's going to learn a lot more of that off-the-ball movement he needs to adapt to make him a better player.
But things with Man United, you still don't know where they're going to play him each week.
No, and this is a big thing I think I have for Rashford is he a winger or is he a striker? I don't think he knows.
No, he doesn't.
If I had to guess, or I personally think he works better off of the wing. Purely because of his pace. He can get shots away. I think as a one up front, he's not strong enough to sort of be that. I don't think he's strong or clever enough as of yet to play that sort of sole striker role. Whereas if you've got someone experienced like Cavani,
against Liverpool, where fair enough, he was offside probably like 6 or 7 times in the first half. If he could have managed that timing a lot better, he could have been in about 4 or 5 times a goal on us.
Yeah.
Carry on, Charlie.
I was going to say, I think in the long run, I think 2-3 years at the World Cup and the Euros after, I think he will be a standout man. But he still needs that time to learn more of like the off the ball side of things. And I think I said it last week. He needs a better coach than Solskjaer to get the best out of him.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And then we sort of got the 2 central options. I think you and me, Tom, we've gone with Harry Kane and Calvert-Lewin. I think the only time I'll like Harry Kane is in an England shirt.
Yeah.
As you Tom will see, he got a number 9 Kane shirt on.
The last one in the shop.
No denying, I think if he can find his form and he actually get fitness, and stay fit, because I think that's being his biggest problem is he always seems to get to this time of the season, he'll always end up with an injury, like an ankle injury or something. But if he can stay fit, I think there's no better sort of forward for us to lead the line. He's clinical. He reminds me of sort of an Alan Shearer type striker.
Yeah, he's class. I mean, he's got everything. He can pass, movement in the box, finishing's great, right foot, left foot. At the minute, there's no one that touches his level, in my opinion.
No.
Unless he's injured, I can't see him. I can't see. Well, I've put Dominic Calvert-Lewin. As I say, I can't see Harry Kane starting. Even if he's on a bad run of form, I still think he keeps his spot.
And did you took Bamford out, didn't you, Warren? Because you were debating Bamford, which I think is an interesting one.
It is with Bamford, obviously, like I said to you beforehand, both same amount of goals as Calvert-Lewin, but 5 assists. Calvert-Lewin's nil, I think it said on there.
It's an interesting, but I think for me, Kane and Bamford are sort of similar options. But then even I think Calvert-Lewin is. I think the sort of two players that come to mind who we didn't mention is obviously Jamie Vardy, but obviously he sort of put himself into retirement effectively in international duty, but he hasn't ever ruled out coming back. I think he still offers something different in the sort of the, I won't say pace injection, but he's got that poacher in him. He's something different I think that England could do with. And the other one I'd like to mention is Danny Ings.
He kept up, obviously, with all of the Southampton squad. If they kept up that momentum, what they had in that kind of short period, I think would be going, because his finishing is blinding, to be honest. It's just keeping him, obviously, like it was at Liverpool, keeping him fit.
Yeah.
If Vardy wasn't in retirement, he would be on the plane for me over Calvert-Lewin.
Yeah.
I think it's a big miss is Vardy. And you know, he done it for, I would say, I think his reason that he wants to give the younger players a chance to come through.
He did say as well he wanted to do it so he could play at Leicester for more years.
Makes sense. Because I think he's still arguably one of the top forwards in the Premier League. On his day, like his finishing, etc., is second to none.
He's literally constantly going at that defence.
Yeah. Because I think he's like 32, 33 now, I think. He's not.
Have you heard his pre-match routine?
Yeah.
Nuts. Have you heard it, Charlie?
Go on. I probably might have, but it doesn't really come to talk.
He wakes up, has a Red Bull, like a big red, literally wakes up to the fridge, bomb, to the ground, carb loads, boom, another energy drink, warms up, boom, another energy drink. And he's just like a little whippersnapper around that pitch.
He's
espressos as well.
Huh?
I'm pretty sure he drinks double espressos as well.
It wouldn't surprise me. I know he was one of the players with like chewing the tobacco. I know he done that for a while. But I don't know. It's a hard one. But obviously, there's our 23-man squad. So obviously, you can let us know below who you think's correct in going, who's not. If there's any players you would sort of add in there. I think we can try and we'll do a starting 11 between us. So formation, what would you like to see?
4-3-3 with a DM.
So we're all in agreement with that. So I think that's the best way to play it. So I think we've all decided that Nick Pope's going to be starting, I think.
100%.
Yeah. Right back?
Trent.
So the centre-backs, I think...
I'm the only one that's not going to say Maguire, and it's going to be Stones and Maguire for you two. So we'll just go Stones and Maguire.
Who would you have there instead, though, if you could?
I would have Mings. I just, I know don't get me wrong, he's not the best, but when I've seen him play for Villa, he just puts his body on the line constantly. And if you watch the amount of balls that go into, like, for example, when City beat them 1-0, the amount of clearances he made, last-ditch clearances he made, it was immense. I may have an agenda against Harry Maguire, but I'd have Mings.
We'll put a little bracket underneath for Mings for you, so he's there.
Okay.
Left back, I'm guessing it's going to be Luke Shaw.
I'll go Chilwell.
It's hard, because Chilwell was starting for so long for Chelsea, and since Tuchel's come in, he's now favouring Alonso again.
Yeah.
Big mistake.
And I like Chilwell. I think he's class, but it's another thing is, how much did Chelsea pay for him?
50, maybe.
Do you think he's worth that?
How old is he? 24?
I think he's older than that.
He's my age, which is 24. Sorry, yeah. Sorry, I'm acting like you know what my age is. Yeah. Sorry, it's 24.
I don't know if he'll be the starting left back for a long time for England.
Who's in the 23s?
You got Max Aarons.
Yeah.
He's right side, don't he?
He was playing. I went last year to watch the under-20, and he played at left. Let me get the squad up quickly.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see who they've got coming through at left back.
But I think, like you said, we're so spoiled with right backs. I don't know if any of them could really convert over to that.
Would it be Williams? He's left back.
Yeah, he's not there for me yet.
No, but I mean, he was playing for under 21s, wasn't he?
Oh, right, probably, yeah.
Right, let's have a look if I can see any. Lloyd Kelly, he's one that was there. Reece Williams is who you mentioned. Ben Godfrey's in there, but he's a centre. James Justin, but he's on the right. Yeah.
There's no really actually natural lefts, are there?
Left side of centre left backs are ones we don't really have many of.
It's crazy.
So I think we'll go with Chilwell. That holding midfield role, I'll give it to Hendo to start.
I'll go Henderson.
Hendo.
I think he offers a bit more than Rice. He's tournament experience, obviously Liverpool captain.
I just love his I love his chat. I know it sounds really really basic, but there's a video of it's Robertson blocking a runoff, and he's just going, "Robbo, get your body there, yeah, well done, Robbo," and he lifts everyone. And in a game that, you know, we could be a bit under the cosh, or a game where we feel that we're getting overrun, I feel like he's the one that's going to, you know, he'll pull you up if you're not pulling your weight, sort of thing. Definitely. So I think he's more vital. I think he offers more than Rice at the minute.
Have you seen his interviews? Because normally he's got a bit of a deeper voice, but after the match, you go and listen to him when he's just obviously finished the game. His voice is a bit more high pitched. Because we're shouting so much.
Then them two in the middle, an advanced sort of role.
Are we going to say our two, or
we'll sort of work out between us? I think
Grealish and Foden.
I would say that it'll be either for me Grealish, Foden / Maddison.
Yeah,
they're the only.
You pick on now.
It's hard. I'm happy to give it to Foden because I think he needs that experience as well in a tournament. Because if he can come into this and make a sort of big impression, and we say get to like the semis and finals, he's a big role. He's a shoe-in for the England for the next 4 or 5 years.
Thing is probably to say, wait until the end of the season, whoever's in better form starts. Because when you look at it, I wouldn't say anyone's better than anyone in that. They've got such good quality.
Yeah.
Exactly. Go, well, he's better than him. Well, they're not. They're all the same, I think.
And then the forwards, so the right wing, left wing.
Right wing, Jaden Sancho. Left wing, Raheem Sterling.
Yeah.
Agreed. And Captain Keane up top.
Yeah.
Pretty. That was a lot easier than I thought it would be.
So realistically,
but let's be honest. Let's be honest. He's going to play a back five, and we're going to have Winks, Dyer, Henderson in midfield. Rice just in front of them.
Yeah,
and then Kane up front on his own.
If we have Winks or Eric Dyer, I am going to support Wales.
One of them will be in that squad. I'm telling you that now.
I'd rather have Harry Winks, but he not play. But because how Eric Dyer is a professional footballer, I don't know.
It baffles me. But then realistically, boys, where are we saying England are coming in this Euros?
We've got on our group.
Scotland, Croatia, and I can't remember the other
one. I'm going to go.
Definitely get our group stages, won't we? So
I reckon we'll come second in group stages. I reckon Croatia will top it.
Their squad isn't that strong anymore. Obviously, I know they got Modric,
Perisic, Rakitic,
but it's not the same. Go back 2 years ago, they're not in the same form. Like Modric back then was obviously, I swear he was the Ballon d'Or winner then. I don't think he's the same player he was then.
But Croatia are our bogey team. They always have been.
Yeah, they've got a lot of playing in Europe.
But obviously we turned them over in the Nations League. after
Yeah,
that.
but that's like winning a pre-season tournament. It's like winning the Barclays Asia Trophy.
That's like a pre-season six-a-side.
Yeah, literally. It's like Arsenal. We'll say, like, Arteta will come out and say, "Oh, we want to win the FA Cup. We'll lose to Liverpool in the FA Cup, then we'll go beat them in the league." I think that actually happened, didn't it?
I think so.
Yeah.
So, like, on the lines of that.
But if it was like an international friendly, but the Nations League was at a higher level. It wasn't I would say, like the B teams being put out. This was the full teams, and there's a lot to sort of play. There's a prize fund at the end of the day, and there's a trophy and a way into qualification. So it was a lot more to it. Obviously, we didn't turn them over like 5-6-0, but we still got the job done. I'm pretty sure we won both games in that. I want to be hopeful. I think realistically, anything but the semis is a disappointment.
You would think that.
Because realistically, if we got to the semis in the World Cup, you've got to go for it. You can't. It's always we've got to have this winners mentality now. We can't go from the semis.
But you put us up against other nations. I can't see us beating France. I think France are just too superior.
I think France are the team that's going to win it, personally.
Or Portugal, they're getting stronger.
Portugal will be a good side. Spain, going up again, are getting good. Italy.
I think Spain have, since they're like sort of PKPO and that have sort of got older. Well, they don't play anymore, but whoever still plays, it's not as strong as it used to be.
They have a good team though. They've got a lot of youth in there, and they are banging goals in for fun. They
are, but I think if we play the way that we know we can with that attacking mentality, out of, I'll say, like the midfield and forwards, there's not many better nations, probably bar France, that have the amount of talent we do.
But are we going to use it? That's the question. That's the whole thing. It's you don't have to have a UEFA B coaching license. You don't have to have all these achievements and whatever to know that for this team, you need to bulk the attack as much as you can in this squad.
And I think that's the biggest problem is I don't think we'll see a generation the same way we do for a long time. Agreed, I think France will win it. Their squad, their freaking fourth team could probably win the Euros. They've got that much talent. But for me, I think if we don't get to the semis, we can deem it as a sort of a failure for the squad we have.
Do you think if we don't make it to the semis, do you reckon Southgate will be sacked?
Yes.
Yeah, the thing with them, wherever we go, what we get to, all I want is for them not to be another moment of why didn't he pass it?
I
think for me more than anything, I think for a lot of, I'll say, obviously I'm 23, nearly 24 now. It's the first sort of, like the World Cup last time was a good thing for a lot of our generation to get back into the national team. For a long time for me growing up, it was never anything to be interested in because we was always out around 16 or we never had that appeal. I think for the World Cup, it brought sort of that everyone back together as such, is you've got to grow on that. Because I think we wouldn't have done as well without the support that the team got. Like, you saw as a nation, we were freaking going mental. I sort of freaking, if we won that, God knows, no one would have been going to work the next day. But you've got to build on that and keep that momentum going to get people behind the national team. Otherwise, we're just going to drop off again.
Yeah.
He did do a good job of bringing the nation together.
He did. But to me, I think, I said this last week, is the last episode of season 1 was all about how I think Southgate's time is up. And I was doing this a year ago. It was obviously straight after those performances when we were going back to this 2 holding midfield and we weren't doing that.
Oh, God, I hate it. It's literally, you're killing our attacking lineup is a joke.
And he's taken away, obviously, that excitement of us at the World Cup when we were so good to seeing us losing and playing such boring football.
Who is it we played at Wembley? I want to say Scotland?
What, recently?
We played an attacking formation and I think we won about 3 or 4-0 and it was just we just absolutely tore them to pieces. Played a 4-3-3.
It might have been because I think Calvert-Lewin backed. I think it was one of his first games.
Yeah, and that literally should have told Southgate, "Wow, we need to attack more," because we just set out to him negatively.
Yeah. But saying this is just sort of a bit of a future. If Southgate did get sacked, who would you want to see come in as the next manager?
Eddie Howe.
Good shout. I like him, but
yes, in terms of he can make a team that's not so good strong. He didn't have a lot of money at Bournemouth, and I think it was unfair of him to be dismissed. So yes, in that respect. But I feel like if England want to win an international tournament, they need to go big.
International. Not all.
Yeah, someone, I don't know who's out of management at the minute. It's hard. It's really hard. But someone on the line of Ancelotti, someone like Ancelotti on that sort of level.
That has been thrown around before. I think he's even said he'd be open to it. Is Mourinho?
No.
And then we started coming back then.
You know what? I wouldn't see the problem, and I wouldn't be upset if someone like Lampard got it, because Lampard, I think even at Chelsea, tried to play attacking football. I think he knows the England setup very well. Obviously, being an ex-international, arguably one of our best ever England players, he's got to know what that tournament factor is. I think similar way that Southgate did. I think that was a good thing, is that he had that experience of being in the camps.
I would personally have Gerrard over Lampard.
Oh, 100%. I think Gerrard's a better manager, no denying it. But I don't think Gerrard would be in this position to take the job, whereas I think Lampard is. Gerrard is destined, I think, we were sort of discussing it last week, is destined, I think, to take a bigger role than Rangers and then Liverpool.
I think he'll make the switch. I think he'll make the switch.
What, straight to Liverpool?
Yeah, because, Liverpool haven't been performing as good as they could have been lately. And naturally in football, for whatever reason, the manager is blamed first. I would hate, from a mutual point of view, I'd hate to see Jurgen Klopp go, because I think he's done absolute wonders for that Liverpool team. However, we're already, what I don't like in football these days is that, say if, we'll take Liverpool as the example as I'm talking about, and if Salah has a bad game, that conversation's had for about 10 seconds, they start questioning the manager. So I fear that potentially Klopp may go in the next few seasons with Gerrard coming in to replace him.
His contract ends next year anyway, I think. He has had a interview recently about, and he said he's not in any rush to be leaving, but he always does. He always has a year out before when he goes from somewhere. So, but I don't think it won't be anytime soon. And Gerrard shouldn't be rushing to get that Liverpool job straight away anyway.
I think I can sort of say, obviously, you can understand this as well. So from an Arsenal point of view, the Gerrard sort of situation is very similar, I think, to me, is like someone like Thierry Henry. I said this last week, is you wouldn't want him to take the Arsenal job, because if he took it and it went disastrously wrong, that literally ruins his whole reputation, as I see as an Arsenal legend.
Yeah, he's not. Management hasn't really helped him, I don't think, in this way. I don't think.
There's a lot of rumours he's set to be taking the Bournemouth job.
Yeah, I've heard a lot about that, actually. It's quite a weird one. Because I didn't think someone, no disrespect to the Championship, I don't think anyone of his stature would sort of go to the Championship. I don't think you'd see many players, ex-players. Was that?
Rooney?
Yeah, but where are Derby? Are they at the top?
No, they're
no.
There you go then.
But where are Bournemouth? Are they like third?
Bournemouth.
You look at their team though.
What, Bournemouth?
Like fifth or sixth.
For Championship, they've got a good team.
Bournemouth are actually 7th in the league.
Super Jackie Wilshere.
And Derby are 18th at the moment.
Wow. They're 18th.
Yeah.
And he's still. But when did he take over? Start of the season?
No, so he was but he was a player manager for a long time.
Yeah.
He was in a coach role, and then I think he took the full permanent role in December. So he made the decision to retire and become the manager.
Yeah, well,
it's an odd one, but I think that's covered pretty much everything for this week. It's been a pleasure to have you on again, Mr. Jones.
Thank you for having me, lads. Always a pleasure.
I think we sort of said we'd like to do an episode in the future where we can sort of break down Arsenal in further detail, because you understand it more than anything. I think we can do Liverpool as well, because they're down the same boat. It won't be long till we overtake you in the league. Give it a few more weeks.
All I heard was absolute crap then.
It won't be long. It won't be long. We're flying. You're just going further down at the moment. It's great.
I've chance of losing 10 stone and Arsenal being above us in the season.
We'll see at the end. We'll see at the end. No, it's been a pleasure again, Tom.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all, and we'll see you guys next week.